The man who had everything. My name is Ethan Carter, and I should have been the happiest man in Chicago. I said those words to myself every morning while looking at the city from the glass wall of my office. I was 35 years old. I owned a medical technology company that made more money every year. I live in a beautiful house near the lake. I drove expensive cars. I wore custom suits. Most important of all, I had Olivia. I still remembered the day I met her. "You look nervous," she had said. "I am nervous." "Why?" "Because I think the prettiest woman in this room is talking to me." She laughed, and I fell in love. 6 years later, I still felt the same way. "You're staring again," Olivia said one morning while making coffee. "I can't help it. You say that every day." "And I mean it every day." She smiled and handed me a cup. "You have a meeting today." "I know. And then dinner with investors." "I know that too. And don't forget your medicine." I made a face. She crossed her arms. "Ethan, I hate those pills. You need them. I need your coffee more." She laughed again. Before I left the kitchen, Olivia grabbed my hand. "Promise me something." "That depends. Take care of yourself today." "I always do." "No, you don't." I smiled. "Are you worried about me?" "Every day." "I'm not going anywhere." She looked at me for a long second. "Don't make promises your heart can't keep." I squeezed her hand. "Then I'll make one with my soul. I'll come home tonight." She forced a smile, but something sad flashed across her face. I thought she feared another one of my hospital visits again. I kissed her forehead and left the kitchen. My life looked perfect, but my heart had never been normal. I was born with a weak heart. I had spent most of my childhood in hospitals. I knew the smell of medicine better than the smell of playground grass. I visited my doctor every month. Dr. Benjamin Reed had been treating me for years. He was more than my doctor. He was my friend. He looked at my latest test results and sighed. "I don't like these numbers." "You never like my numbers." "I'm serious." "So am I." He removed his glasses. "Ethan, you need to slow down. I run a company. The company will survive." "What about me?" He looked directly into my eyes. "That's exactly what worries me." I stayed quiet. He tapped the papers. "You may need a heart transplant someday." "I've heard that sentence since I was 12. That doesn't make it less serious." "I feel fine." "You always say that." I smiled. "You worry too much. And you joke too much." I stood up. "I'll be careful." "You said that last month." "I'll be extra careful." He shook his head. "I don't know what to do with you." I laughed and left his office. When I reached my company, my assistant was waiting for me. Sophia Miller carried a tablet and 3 folders. "You're late." "Good morning to you too." "You have 8 meetings." "That's a terrible thing to say before lunch." She followed me toward my office. "You also have contracts to sign." More bad news. "And investors are arriving at 6. I looked at her. "Do you enjoy watching me suffer?" "A little." I laughed. Sophia had worked for me for 5 years. She was smart, organized, and brutally honest. She placed the folders on my desk. "You look tired." "I slept fine." "You're lying." "Maybe a little." She frowned. "Did Dr. Reed say something?" "He said I should slow down." And I ignored him." She sighed. "You ignore everyone." "I don't ignore you." "That's because I remind you about everything." She was right. I leaned back in my chair. Sophia stayed near the door. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did." She rolled her eyes. "When was your last day off?" "I don't remember." "That's not an answer." "Maybe 3 months ago." "That's insane." "I own the company. And your company will bury you if you keep this up." I laughed. She didn't. "I'm serious, Ethan. You sound like Dr. Reed." "Maybe because he's right." I looked through the window. When I was 10, I thought I would never become an adult. Her expression softened. "Because of your heart." I nodded. I spent more birthdays in hospitals than at home. Every doctor told me to be careful. Every nurse looked at me with pity. I promised myself that if I survived, I would live as much as possible. Living and destroying yourself are different things. I smiled. "You're too wise for your age. And you're too stubborn for yours." I picked up a folder. "Fine. I'll rest soon." That's another lie. Probably. She laughed this time. I spent the rest of the day in meetings. By the time I returned home, it was almost midnight. I walked toward my bedroom and heard Olivia speaking on the phone. I stopped. Her voice was soft. Don't worry. Silence followed. I'll save you. I promise. I frowned. Another pause. No, he doesn't know anything. I felt something strange inside me. Then she said, trust me. I stepped back. Who was she talking to? I almost walked into the room, but I didn't. I trusted my wife. Maybe a friend needed help. Maybe a family member was sick. I hated myself for even questioning her. I entered the bedroom a minute later. She looked up. You're home. Long day. She smiled. You look exhausted. I am. She touched my cheek. Get some sleep. I looked at her for a few seconds. What? Nothing. She kissed my forehead. I pushed my doubts away. I loved this woman. I trusted her with my life. 3 days later, I stood on a stage during an investor event. I smiled at the audience. Thank you all for believing in our company. Applause filled the room. I continued speaking. Then pain exploded in my chest. I grabbed the podium. My breathing changed. I heard someone shout my name. Ethan. The room tilted. I saw Sophia running toward me. I heard another voice. Call an ambulance. I tried to speak. I couldn't. Everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. Machines beeped beside me. Olivia sat next to me. She looked at me. For the first time in our marriage, I saw fear in her eyes. My heart was never mine. I blinked at the bright lights above me. My chest hurt. My throat was dry. Then I saw Olivia sitting beside my bed. Ethan, she said softly. You awake? I tried to smile. How long was I out? Almost a day. I looked around. Hospital again. Tears appeared in her eyes. Don't joke. I reached for her hand. I'm okay. No, you're not. Before I could answer, the door opened. Dr. Benjamin Reed walked inside holding a tablet. He looked tired. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I got hit by a truck. He didn't smile. That scared me. I slowly sat up. What's wrong? He pulled a chair beside my bed. Ethan, your condition has become worse. I frowned. How much worse? He took a deep breath. Your heart is failing faster than we expected. Silence filled the room. I looked at Olivia. She was already crying. I looked back at him. What happens now? You need a heart transplant. Eventually. No. He held my gaze. You need one immediately. The words felt unreal. I laughed softly. Nobody else did. You're serious. Very serious. I stayed at my blanket. I had lived my whole life knowing this day might come. I just never thought it would happen now. Olivia squeezed my hand. We'll get through this. I looked at her. You believe that? I know that. I smiled weakly. She touched my face. I'm not leaving you. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. For the next few days, I stayed in the hospital. Tests. Medicine. More tests. Olivia never left my side. She brought me books. She fed me soup. She slept in the chair beside my bed. Every time I opened my eyes, she was there. One afternoon, she walked into my room with a man I had never seen before. Ethan, I'd like you to meet someone. The man smiled nervously. I'm Daniel Hayes. I nodded. Nice to meet you. Olivia looked between us. Daniel and I went to college together. Oh, he works for a charity organization now. Daniel offered his hand. I shook it. His hand felt cold. You've heard about my husband? Olivia asked. Daniel looked at me. Yes. His eyes stayed on me a little too long. There was something strange in his expression. Pity, maybe even guilt. I frowned. Do I know you from some way? No. He quickly looked away. I don't think we've ever met. I studied his face. He seemed uncomfortable. Olivia changed the subject. Daniel helps raise money for patients with medical problems. That's good, I said. He nodded. I try. The room became quiet. Finally, he cleared his throat. I should go. He looked at me again. I hope you get better. Thanks. He walked out. I turned to Olivia. He seems nice. She forced a smile. He is. Then why did he look like he was attending my funeral? She laughed nervously. "You're imagining things." Maybe I was. But something about Daniel bothered me. The next morning a nurse came to check my medication. She was young and cheerful. Her name tag read Emily Brooks. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." "Morning." She adjusted my fall. "Your wife wasn't here last night." I looked up. She went home to shower. "Oh." She smiled. "At least Mr. Hayes stayed with her." I blinked. "Daniel." She looked surprised. "Didn't you know?" "Know what?" She looked embarrassed. "I shouldn't talk." I sat up. "Nurse Brooks." She hesitated. "I've seen them here a lot." "A lot." She nodded. "For weeks." I stared at her. "Weeks?" "Before you collapsed." I felt my stomach tighten. They've been visiting together almost every day. I couldn't speak. The nurse realized she had said too much. "I'm sorry. I thought you knew." She quickly left. I sat there alone. Weeks. Why had Olivia been coming to the hospital with Daniel for weeks? I tried to explain it away. Maybe he was sick. Maybe she was helping him. Maybe there was another reason. But my chest suddenly felt heavier. That evening, Olivia returned. "Hey," she said. "How are you feeling?" I looked at her. "I'm okay." "You don't sound okay." I forced a smile. "Just tired." She kissed my forehead. I wanted to ask about Daniel. I wanted to ask about the hospital visits. Instead, I stayed quiet. I was afraid of the answers. That night I woke up because I needed water. The room was dark. Then I heard voices outside my door. I recognized them immediately. Olivia. Daniel. I stayed still. Daniel sounded upset. "I can't let him die for me." I froze. Olivia lowered her voice. "You don't have a choice." "Yes, I do." "No." I heard footsteps. Then Daniel spoke again. "I feel sick every time I look at him." "Stop. He's your husband." Silence. Then Olivia spoke. Her voice was shaking. "I already made my choice." Another pause. "I love you." I stopped breathing. Daniel whispered, "This is wrong." "I don't care." "What if he finds out?" "He won't." My blood turned cold. I heard someone crying. I couldn't tell which one. Then footsteps moved farther away. The hallway became silent. I lay there without moving. I thought maybe I had dreamed everything. I thought maybe my medicine was affecting me. Then I remembered Daniel's eyes. Pity, guilt. Suddenly everything felt different. The next afternoon I couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. I needed answers. I waited until Olivia left to buy coffee. Then I slowly walked out of my room. My legs felt weak. I reached the nurse's station. Nobody was there. A folder lay on the desk. I saw my name. I shouldn't have touched it. I did. I opened it. Inside were copies of my insurance papers. Attached to them were documents with another name. Daniel Hayes. I frowned. Then I saw medical reports. Heart failure. Urgent treatment required. I kept reading. My hands started shaking. Some forms included my insurance information. Others included my medical records. Someone had attached both files together. I turned another page. I couldn't breathe. A handwritten note sat inside. Prepare transfer after donor status confirmation. I understood. I understood everything. Daniel was dying. I was dying. Olivia had been using my insurance and my records to save him. I grabbed the desk for support. The woman I trusted with my life had chosen another man. She wasn't trying to save me. She was preparing for my death. Suddenly alarms started screaming inside my room. I heard nurses shouting, "Mr. Carter!" I looked down. My chest burned. Doctors rushed toward me. I heard someone yell, "His heartbeat is dropping." The hallway spun around me. I took one last painful breath. Then my heartbeat stopped. The dead man who came back. The first thing I heard was a machine beeping. The second thing I felt was pain. I slowly opened my eyes. The room was unfamiliar. White walls, different curtains, different machines. I turned my head and saw Dr. Benjamin Reed sitting beside my bed. He looked exhausted. Then he noticed my eyes. "Ethan." I swallowed. "Am I dead?" He laughed softly and wiped his eyes. "No." I stayed at him. "I remember alarms. You scared all of us." I looked around again. "This isn't my hospital room." "No." "What happened?" He took a deep breath. You had cardiac arrest. I closed my eyes. I know that part. The emergency team revived you, but your condition became unstable. We transferred you here immediately. I slowly looked at him again. How long have I been unconscious? 5 days. 5 days. It felt impossible. I tried to sit up. Pain shot through my chest. Easy, he said. I leaned back. Then I remembered the documents. I remembered Daniel. I remembered Olivia's voice. I looked at Dr. Reed. She wanted me to die. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I looked away. After a long silence, I spoke again. Tell me everything. He rubbed his face. The situation became complicated after your collapse. Complicated how? He hesitated. Ethan, there were financial decisions being made while you were unconscious. I frowned. What decisions? Company shares. I stared at him. What? Asset transfers. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Who authorized them? He looked directly at me. Olivia. I felt cold. No, I'm sorry. No. He lowered his head. She began transferring ownership documents into her name. I kept shaking my head. Why would she do that? He stayed silent. I already knew. Because she thought I would never wake up. I laughed. The sound frightened even me. I laughed until my eyes filled with tears. Then I stopped. She buried me before I was dead. Dr. Reed didn't say anything. I looked at the ceiling. Everything suddenly felt empty. A few hours later, someone knocked on the door. A tall man walked inside carrying a briefcase. He had gray hair and tired eyes. The moment I saw him, I recognized him. Marcus. He smiled. You look terrible. I almost laughed. You're not exactly handsome either. He pulled a chair beside me. Marcus Bennett had been my lawyer for almost 10 years. He was also one of my oldest friends. He placed the briefcase on the floor. I thought I lost you. Apparently not. He studied my face. Can you talk? I think so. He nodded. Good. Then his expression changed. We have a problem. I sighed. I figured. He opened the briefcase. Several papers appeared. I stared at them. What are those? Documents. I guessed that part. He ignored me. Your wife has been moving assets. I closed my eyes. Dr. Reed already told me. Then I'll tell you the rest. I looked at him. I stopped several transfers. I blinked. You did. He nodded. I never trusted Olivia. I frowned. You never said anything. You loved her. That's not an answer. He sighed. I saw signs. What signs? Too much interest in your finances. Too many questions about ownership structures. Too much curiosity about insurance policies. I stared at him. And you thought she was planning this? No. He looked angry. I thought she was greedy. I never imagined this. Silence filled the room. Then he spoke again. You can still fight. I looked at him. But you need proof. I didn't answer. He leaned forward. Ethan. I finally looked at him. You are still alive. Barely. Do you understand what that means? I said nothing. It means the game isn't over. I looked away. The game. I didn't want a game. I wanted my wife. I wanted my old life. I wanted to wake up and discover all of this had been a nightmare. Marcus left an hour later. Dr. Reed also stepped outside to answer a phone call. I was finally alone. I stayed at my hands. I remembered my wedding. Olivia had worn a simple white dress. She had looked nervous. I remembered holding her hand. Are you sure? I had asked. She smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. I remembered our vows. I'll stand beside you forever. I remembered dancing with her. I remembered our first apartment. I remembered lazy Sundays, movie nights, birthday dinners, kisses, laughter. 6 years. Were all of them lies? I didn't know. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Marcus walked back inside. I forgot something. I looked at him. He wasn't carrying his briefcase anymore. Instead, he held an envelope. What is that? He looked uncomfortable. Something you need to see. I suddenly didn't want to see it. He sat beside me. Ethan. No. You need the truth. No. He placed the envelope in my hand. I stared at it. Please don't make me. I'm sorry. My fingers slowly opened it. Photographs slid onto the bed. I picked one up. Olivia and Daniel were sitting in a restaurant. She was smiling. He was holding her hand. I grabbed another picture. They were walking together. Another. She was hugging him. Another. He was kissing her forehead. I couldn't breathe. I kept staring. Photo after photo. Memory after memory. Lie after lie. Marcus quietly spoke. They'd been meeting for months. Months. I dropped the photographs. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just stared. Then I remembered something. One rainy night, Olivia had looked at me and said, I could never love anyone else. I finally understood. She already did. I closed my eyes. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. When I opened my eyes again, something inside me had changed. I looked at Marcus. Help me sit up. He looked surprised. What? I said, help me sit up. He did. I slowly pushed myself against the pillows. Every movement hurt. Good. I wanted to feel it. I looked at the photographs. Then I looked at Marcus. I'm not dying. He stayed silent. I'm not begging either. He kept watching me. I took a slow breath. I spent 6 years loving that woman. I picked up one photograph. That man can't have her. I tore the picture in half. Then I tore another. And another. When I finished, I looked at Marcus. I want my life back. He nodded slowly. Then take it. The next evening I put on a jacket and left the hospital through a side entrance. Nobody stopped me. Marcus drove me downtown. We parked across from a small restaurant. I looked through the window. Then I saw them. Olivia. Daniel. They were sitting together. She was smiling. He raised a glass. She laughed. They looked happy. They looked relieved. They looked like two people celebrating. Celebrating because they believed I was already gone. Taking back my name. I returned to the hospital before sunrise. Dr. Reed nearly had a heart attack when he saw me. Are you insane? He shouted. Probably. You left the hospital? Yes. With your condition? Yes. He stared at me. I stayed back. Finally, he sighed. I don't even know why I ask questions anymore. I smiled. He didn't. Get back into bed. I obeyed. For the next few weeks, recovery became my full-time job. Every morning hurt. My chest hurt. My legs hurt. Even breathing felt like work. One morning I stood beside my bed and took 3 steps. Then I almost collapsed. Sophia caught my arm. Easy. I hate this. I know. I used to work 16 hours a day. And now you need help walking. I looked away. She spoke gently. There's no shame in healing. I nodded. The next day I walked 5 steps. Then 10. Then 20. I started using light weights. I ate healthier food. I followed every instruction Dr. Reed gave me. One afternoon he walked into my room and looked surprised. You exercising? I'm trying. Who are you? And what have you done with Ethan? I laughed. I'm serious. So am I. He smiled. This is the first time you've actually listened to me. Almost dying changes a man. He became quiet. I'm glad you're still here. I looked at him. So am I. Every day I felt a little stronger. Every day I thought less like a patient. Every day I thought more like a man preparing for war. Marcus visited almost daily. One evening he entered carrying coffee. I hired someone. I frowned. Another lawyer. No. He sat down. An investigator. I looked interested. Why? Because I think Olivia has done much more than we know. A woman walked in behind him. She wore a dark suit and carried a notebook. Marcus smiled. This is Detective Rachel Moore. She offered her hand. I shook it. Nice to meet you. She nodded. I've already started looking into your case. Find anything? A lot. I sat up. Tell me. She opened her notebook. Your wife has been moving money for months. How much money? Enough to attract attention. I frowned. She continued. I also found documents with questionable signatures. What does that mean? She looked directly at me. I think someone forged your name. Silence filled the room. Marcus crossed his arms. I knew it. I looked at Rachel. Can you prove it? I'm working on it. How long will it take? As long as necessary. I nodded. Find everything. She smiled slightly. I intend to. The next morning another visitor arrived. I looked up and froze. Henry. My older brother stood in the doorway. We hadn't spoken in 4 years. He looked older. So did I. Neither of us moved. Finally, he spoke. You look terrible. I laughed. You too. He smiled for the first time. Then he walked over and hugged me. I didn't expect it. I hugged him back. When he pulled away, he looked angry. Why didn't anyone call me? I didn't think you'd care. He looked hurt. I'm still your brother. Silence followed. We had stopped speaking after our father's funeral. We argued about family money. We said things we both regretted. Then we simply disappeared from each other's lives. Henry sat beside my bed. I heard what happened. I nodded. He shook his head. I should have been here. I wasn't exactly friendly either. No, you were stubborn. I smiled. That's fair. He looked at me carefully. You survived for a reason. I stayed quiet. He leaned forward. Don't waste it. Something inside me shifted. For years I thought I had lost my brother. Maybe I was wrong. A week later I was finally discharged. Marcus drove me home. Henry followed in another car. Sophia was waiting at my house. I looked at all three of them. My doctor, my assistant, my lawyer, my brother. I wasn't alone. That realization changed everything. The next few days became a blur of meetings. Rachel visited almost every afternoon. One evening she spread documents across my dining table. We found company payments. I looked at the papers. Payments to who? Daniel Hayes. I stared at her. She pointed at several pages. Medical bills. I looked at the numbers. They were enormous. I looked back at her. My company paid for this. She nodded. Using company accounts. I slowly sat down. Marcus looked furious. Rachel pulled out another file. And that's not all. I opened it. Inside were investor reports. I frowned. What am I looking at? She answered immediately. False statements. I looked up. False. Your investors were told the company was making different financial decisions. I blinked. Olivia lied to them. Yes. I kept turning pages. Then I stopped. I recognized my signature. Except it wasn't mine. I looked at Rachel. I never signed this. I know. I looked at another page. And this one. I know. And this one. I know. My hand started shaking. She closed the folder. She forged your signatures. Nobody spoke. Finally, Henry broke the silence. I'll kill her. No. He looked at me. She almost got you killed. I know. You still want to protect her. I thought about it. Then I shook my head. No. The room became quiet again. I looked at the papers. I looked at the signatures. I looked at the stolen money. Then I looked at my friends. For months I had thought like a victim. Why me? Why did she do this? What did I do wrong? Suddenly those questions didn't matter. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was alive. I had proof. I had people standing beside me. I had choices. I looked at Marcus. When can we move? He smiled slightly. That's the Ethan I remember. Meanwhile, Rachel continued watching Olivia and Daniel. 2 days later she called me. They are fighting. I frowned. About what? Daniel wants to confess. I sat straighter. And Olivia. She's panicking. I could almost picture it. Rachel continued. I heard her say, if you talk, we'll lose everything. I stayed silent. Then she said, I think they're turning against each other. I looked through my window. For the first time in months, I felt calm. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was taking back my life. 3 days later, I put on a dark suit. Sophia adjusted my tie. You ready? Yes. Marcus smiled. Let's go. Henry grinned. I've waited for this. An hour later, I stood outside my company's headquarters. I looked up at the building. My building. I walked inside. The receptionist looked at me. Then she screamed. Employees turned. Conversations stopped. Nobody moved. I kept walking. Then I saw Olivia. She was holding papers. She looked up. The papers slipped from her hands. They scattered across the floor. She stared at me. Her face turned white. She looked at me like she had seen a ghost. The woman who lost everything. Nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Olivia kept staring at me. I looked back at her. She whispered, That's impossible. I spoke calmly. You should have checked if I was dead. She took a step backward. The color disappeared from her face. Ethan. I didn't answer. She looked around the office. Then she looked at me again. You were gone. I was unconscious. I saw the doctors. They saved me. She started shaking. I noticed something strange. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. Marcus stepped beside me. We need the conference room. Nobody argued. 10 minutes later, I sat at the head of the table. Olivia sat across from me. She looked terrified. Sophia stood near the window. Marcus opened his briefcase. Several investors sat around the table. Daniel was there too. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Silence filled the room. Finally, Olivia spoke. Ethan, I can explain. I looked at her. Can you? Tears appeared in her eyes. I thought you were dead. You hoped I was dead. No. Then why were you celebrating? She froze. I continued. I saw you. Nobody said anything. I looked at Daniel. You too. He lowered his head. Marcus finally stood. I think it's time. I nodded. He handed documents to everyone. What are these? One investor asked. Marcus spoke calmly. Evidence. Olivia looked confused. Then she read the first page. Her hands started shaking. Marcus continued. Over the last several months, company funds were moved without authorization. One investor frowned. How much money? Marcus named the amount. The room exploded. That's impossible. Who approved this? Where did the money go? Marcus looked directly at Olivia. She did. Olivia's head snapped up. No. Marcus remained calm. We have records. He handed out more papers. I watched her read them. She looked sick. One investor looked at me. Did you approve these transactions? No. Marcus pointed at another document. The signatures were forged. Silence filled the room. One investor slowly stood. Forged? Yes. The man's face turned red. You committed fraud. Olivia looked around desperately. No, I didn't. Rachel walked into the room. She placed another folder on the table. I believe these belong here. I looked at her. She nodded slightly. Marcus smiled. Perfect timing. Olivia looked frightened. Rachel sat down. My name is Detective Rachel Moore. She opened her notebook. I investigated this case. She slid photographs across the table. I recognized them. Bank records, medical bills, transfer documents. Rachel spoke clearly. Company funds were used to pay private expenses. One investor frowned. What private expenses? She looked at Daniel. His medical bills. Every head turned toward him. Daniel looked miserable. Olivia grabbed his arm. Don't say anything. He slowly moved away from her. Rachel continued. There were also false financial reports. She handed out more documents. Investors were intentionally misled. The room became louder. People started shouting. Questions came from every direction. Olivia looked overwhelmed. Then Sophia stepped forward. She carried a box. I have additional records. I looked at her. She smiled sadly. I kept copies of everything. She placed papers on the table. I noticed missing funds months ago. Olivia looked at her. You went through my files. Sophia crossed her arms. I protected the company. You had no right. Sophia laughed softly. And you had every right to steal from it. Olivia looked away. Sophia turned toward the investors. Every transaction is here. She tapped the box. Every missing dollar. Nobody spoke. One investor looked ready to explode. You used our money to pay another man's medical bills. Olivia began crying. I can explain. No, he snapped. You can't. Silence followed. Then Daniel suddenly stood. I need to say something. Olivia grabbed his hand. Sit down. He gently pulled away. No, Daniel. No. He looked at me. I looked back. His eyes were full of guilt. He took a deep breath. I never wanted him to die. Nobody moved. He looked at the table. When Olivia told me Ethan was getting worse, I was terrified. He looked at me again. I have heart problems too. I already knew. He swallowed hard. She said she would help me. Olivia whispered, please stop. He ignored her. She told me Ethan's company and insurance would take care of everything. He looked like he hated himself. I didn't know she was stealing. Olivia started crying harder. I didn't know she forged documents. She shook her head. Daniel. He looked at her. I didn't know she expected him to die. Silence filled the room. Then he spoke again. If I had known, I never would have accepted any help. I believed him, because guilty people usually avoid eye contact. Daniel couldn't even look at himself. Olivia suddenly stood. You're blaming me. He looked exhausted. You lied to me. I did all of this because I love you. I never asked for this. I was trying to save you. You destroyed everything. She looked shocked. Then she turned toward me. Tears streamed down her face. Ethan. I stayed silent. She walked toward me. I still love you. The room became very quiet. I looked at her. This woman had once been my entire world. I had dreamed about growing old with her. I had trusted her completely. Now I felt like I was looking at a stranger. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. Ethan, please. I said nothing. I made mistakes. Mistakes. The word almost made me laugh. She had planned my funeral while I was still breathing. She had transferred my assets. She had stolen from my company. She had lied to everyone. And she called them mistakes. She dropped to her knees. I'm sorry. I stared at her. I love you. I still said nothing. Please forgive me. I felt sadness. I truly did. But I felt no love. That part of me was gone. I finally spoke. I don't hate you. She looked hopeful. Then I continued. But I don't love you anymore. Her face crumbled. I slowly stood. I almost died. She cried harder. And while I was unconscious, you prepared to take everything. She lowered her head. I looked at her for several seconds. Then I stepped around her. I felt strangely calm. The investors quickly made decisions. Emergency votes were called. Her company shares were taken. Her access to accounts disappeared. Financial authorities became involved. Her personal accounts were frozen. By evening, the news had spread everywhere. Her reputation collapsed in a single day. Daniel found me outside the building. I'm sorry. I looked at him. I know. I can never fix this. No. He nodded. Tears filled his eyes. I can't stay with her. I wasn't surprised. He looked broken. I can't carry this guilt anymore. Then he walked away. I watched him leave. I felt no victory. I felt no excitement. I only felt lighter. For months I thought revenge would heal me. I was wrong. Watching people suffer didn't make me happy. But seeing the truth finally come out felt different. Justice felt like taking a deep breath after nearly drowning. Several weeks later, I walked down the courthouse steps. Reporters crowded the entrance. Microphones filled the air. Questions came from everywhere. Then I saw Olivia. She sat alone on the steps. Her hair looked messy. Her eyes looked empty. A reporter approached her. Did you commit financial fraud? Another asked, did you steal company money? A third shouted, did you try to take your husband's assets while he was dying? She said nothing. She couldn't answer any of them. I stood there for a moment. Then I turned around and walked away. The heart I saved. Months passed. For the first time in years, my life became quiet. I woke up early. I walked every morning. I followed my doctor's instructions. I exercised carefully. I ate healthier food. Every month I felt stronger. One afternoon, Dr. Reed examined me and smiled. I almost don't recognize you. That's because I'm behaving. He laughed. I've waited years to hear that. I looked at him. Do you think I'll need a transplant soon? He became serious. Eventually, maybe. I nodded. But not today. I smiled. I'll take that. I also spent more time with Henry. One evening we sat on my porch. He handed me a cup of coffee. Remember when we were kids? I laughed. You pushed me into a lake. You deserved it. I absolutely did not. He smiled. Silence followed. Then he looked at me. I'm sorry. I frowned. For what? For disappearing after Dad died. I looked at him for a long moment. I wasn't exactly easy to deal with. I still should have tried. I sighed. I miss my brother. His eyes became red. I miss mine too. Then he hugged me. I hugged him back. Some things take years to heal. Some things only need one honest conversation. I also spent more time with Sophia. At first she only came to discuss work. Then she stayed for coffee. Then dinner. One evening she looked around my living room. "You hate this house." I laughed. "Is it that obvious? You look miserable every time you walk inside." I looked around. Every room carried memories. I remembered movie nights with Olivia, birthday dinners, arguments, promises, lies. I looked at Sophia. Every corner reminds me of something. "Then why stay?" I didn't answer. She spoke softly. "You survived." I looked at her. "You don't have to live inside your pain." The word stayed with me. 2 weeks later, I sold the house. Henry thought I was crazy. "That's an incredible property." "I know." "Then keep it." I shook my head. "It's just a building." Sophia smiled. "What are you going to do now?" I smiled back. "Start over." I bought a smaller house. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't huge, but it felt peaceful. One afternoon I met Marcus for lunch. He looked surprised. "You seem happy." "I think I am." He smiled. "Good." I looked at him. "I've been thinking. That's usually dangerous." I laughed. "I want to do something useful." "What kind of useful?" I looked through the restaurant window. "When I was a kid, my parents couldn't afford some treatments." He frowned. "I didn't know that." "There were times we struggled." I became quiet. I remember being scared. Marcus waited. I remember feeling alone. I looked at him. "I don't want other people to feel that way." He smiled slowly. "What do you have in mind?" I smiled. "A foundation." A few months later, we created the Carter Heart Foundation. We helped people with serious heart conditions. We paid medical bills. We supported families. We connected patients with specialists. For the first time in my life, my company wasn't my proudest achievement. The foundation was. One morning I visited a children's hospital. A nurse led me to a waiting room. "Someone wants to meet you." A skinny boy stood near the window. He looked nervous. The nurse smiled. "This is Jacob Turner." He looked at me. "You Ethan Carter?" I smiled. "I am." His eyes widened. "You really exist?" I laughed. "I hope so." He smiled a little. The nurse quietly left. Jacob looked down. "Mom says your foundation is helping me." I nodded. He swallowed. "Thank you." I sat beside him. "How old are you?" 16. I looked at him. He looked exactly how I felt at 16. Thin, pale, afraid. I knew that look. I had worn it myself. "When is your surgery?" I asked. "Next month." Worried. He looked embarrassed. A little. I smiled. I was terrified. His head lifted. "You had heart problems too." "My entire life." He stared at me. "Were you scared all the time?" "Pretty much." He laughed softly. I looked at him. I thought I would never become an adult. "What happened?" I smiled. "I became one anyway." He smiled again. Then he asked quietly, "What if something goes wrong?" I looked at him carefully. "What if something goes right?" He blinked. I continued. "What if your future is amazing?" He didn't answer. "What if you grow up and fall in love?" He smiled. "What if you travel everywhere?" He smiled wider. "What if you become something incredible?" He looked thoughtful. I touched his shoulder. "Don't let fear decide your story." He nodded slowly. As I stood to leave, he spoke. "Will you visit again?" I smiled. "I promise." A week later, someone knocked on my front door. I opened it. Olivia stood there. For a second, I barely recognized her. She looked older. She looked tired. She looked empty. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I stepped aside. "Come in." She entered quietly. We sat in silence. Then she looked at me. "I ruined everything." I studied her face. Then I answered. "No." She frowned. "You ruined yourself." Tears filled her eyes. She looked down. "I lost everything." I stayed quiet. She wiped her face. "I think about that day every morning." I still said nothing. She looked at me. "I hurt you." "Yes." "I betrayed you." "Yes." She started crying. "I'm sorry." I believed her. I truly did. But some apologies arrived too late. She looked directly into my eyes. "Can you forgive me?" I took a long breath. "I don't hate you anymore." She looked hopeful. Then I continued. "But I can't let you back into my life." Her face fell. "I understand." I wasn't sure she did. She stood slowly. At the door she stopped. I loved you once. I looked at her. I know. She nodded. Then she left. I watched her walk down the driveway. I felt sad, but I didn't feel broken. I finally understood something. Surviving was my greatest victory. I had been betrayed. I had almost been sacrificed by the woman I loved. But I didn't become bitter. I rebuilt my life. I repaired my relationship with my brother. I made new memories. I helped people. I saved my heart in more ways than one. A few days later, I visited the hospital again. I found Jacob standing outside. We watched the sunrise together. He smiled. It's beautiful. I looked at the sky. Yeah. He looked at me. Do you think everything happens for a reason? I thought about Olivia. I thought about pain. I thought about loss. Then I looked at the rising sun. I think sometimes losing everything is the beginning of becoming the person you were meant to be. Jacob smiled. And for the first time in a very long time, so did I.